White House National Economic Council, Lily Batchelder, and Senior Fellow at the National Taxpayers Union, Mattie Duppler. Mattie, let's start with you. Putting trickle-down economics aside, why is the GOP tax reform plan good for the middle and working class Americans? Because trickle-down is an assumption, it's not a guarantee.
Well, something that is a guarantee, I believe, is the economic growth that will come out of this plan. I think it's interesting how Garrett characterized the House Republican meeting this morning. I've been in a lot of those meetings. Pep rally is not generally how I would describe them. There's a lot of enthusiasm for what House Republicans are going to pass today, which is comprehensive pro-growth tax reform. And on the Senate side, the inclusion of the individual mandate repeal really is something that will affect the middle class. 4 to 5 people who pay that individual mandate tax make less than $50,000 a year. And this tax this year is over $2,000 for a family. That's a significant burden on any family, much less one making less than $50,000.
Lily, anything in this plan you can support?
Well, this is a bill on both the House and Senate that is really heavily tilted towards the wealthy. And on the individual mandate, it's going to result by the end of the decade in 13 million people losing health insurance. And a lot of those people are going to end up paying higher premiums who stay in the markets. They're going to pay about 10% more premiums, according to CBO. So even on the individual mandate piece, these are bills that are terrible for the middle class. But overall, if you look at the Senate bill, by 2026, there's not going to be any family that is earning a wage income that's going to face a tax cut. They're all going to have either tax increases or get nothing from the bill, because what the bill does in the Senate is it makes permanent corporate tax cuts, and it lets all of the benefits, to the extent there are any for the middle class, expire.
Mattie, what are the loopholes that are being closed in terms of corporate taxes? So the idea was corporations go through all of these loopholes and tax shelters so they can pay less taxes and be far more efficient. As it stands right now, all we're doing is cutting the taxes, but the loopholes remain. So they're going to keep all of their tax preparers, all of their structurers, and they're going to end up paying even less. What loopholes are we going to be able to cross off the list?
Well, Stephanie, I want to take issue with 2 things that Lily just mentioned. One is the fact that this corporate income tax rate won't affect income earners in the out years. That's absolutely not true. The congressional scorekeeper, the JCT, actually says that 25% of the corporate income tax cut will go directly to laborers, and that's a benefit that they'll see regardless of the personal side of the reform.
Excuse me, that's an assumption. It is not a guarantee. The last time we saw repatriation, we didn't see corporations increase wages. Every year, CEO pay has increased, and the disparity between CEO and worker pay has never been greater. There is not a direct lever that is going to say, well, now that the money is repatriated here, we're going to pay workers more. Companies are flush with cash.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right on that corporate profits have gone up as wages have stayed exactly where they are. And that's why tax reform will be a way to juice the economy to get wages to rise again. And
why?
We see that in the literature.
If CEOs aren't doing it today, there's no reason for them to do it tomorrow.
This doesn't have to do with the CEO decisions. This has to do with the size of the economy and whether or not productivity can rise for workers who are wage earners. And economists agree that once you cut the corporate income tax rate, which is what JCT is analyzing, it's not the repatriation provision in this bill, it's a corporate income tax cut that is going to spur productivity and increase workers' wages.
Not Larry Summers.
If I can jump in here, even if you look at the JCT estimates, which include this assumption that Mattie's making, that cutting the corporate rate is going to increase wages, this is still a bill that's heavily tilted towards the wealthy. If you look just as a percentage of income, the tax cut for millionaires is going to be 3.2% of their income, and it's 1/16 as much for people earning under $15,000, even assuming that their wages increase from the corporate tax cut. And my guess is a lot of the people in the middle class want to know how their actual tax bill is going to be affected and not bank on the possibility that a corporate rate cut will result in their wages increasing over time.
I agree with you there, Lily, that I think that a wage increase is somewhat of an ephemeral argument, but it's a real argument that people will see impact their pocketbooks in years to come. And JCT also says that 90% of taxpayers making less than $200,000 will see tax relief under this bill. That is an enormous amount of tax relief, and it's much more expansive than we've seen really in any modern tax bill, the way that is distributed. So I would argue that it is a big middle-class tax cut, and it's not weighted specifically towards the wealthy. This isn't hard math. Someone who pays Sorry, Stephanie.
I don't know what JCT estimates you're looking at. If you're looking at the House bill, they find that by 2027, 100 million Americans are either going to face a tax increase or be left out by this bill, and that's over half of Americans. They haven't estimated yet the latest version of the Senate, so we can't say, but we can just look at the way the bill is structured, and given that all of the individual rate cuts, what they are, which is quite small for the middle class, expire after 2025. This is going to end up being a tax increase on them. The only thing that is kept for that affects individuals is the slower inflation indexing, which is going to result in their tax bills rising over time.
All
I
right,
agree with
ladies,
you
we have
that-
to leave it there, but guess what?
All
This
right, so-
conversation, it's not going anywhere. So please come back and join us again soon. Up next, we're going to go back to the big story of the day. 4 more accusers coming forward with allegations